can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It is your boy Ernie the Blerd Without Fear. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the X-Men Age of Revelation tie-ins. Week 7 is on us. Of these tie-ins, we're going to be going through and breaking down the Last Wolverine, number 2, Omega Kids, number 2, Radioactive Spider-Man, number 2, X-Men Book of Revelation, number 2, and Unbreakable X-Men, number 2. And as usual, I'll also be breaking down whether or not each of these books are essential, kind essential, or not essential. And just to keep it simple, essential means that this is a book you need to be reading in order to get the full breadth of the X-Men Age of Revelation story arc. Kind essential just means that there are some elements that will probably be helpful things to know, but ultimately will not make or break your experience with X-Men Age of Revelation. And not essential means these are books you can totally skip. Now, once again, as always, these are not indicative of the quality of these books, whether they are good or bad, just whether or not you need to read them in order to enjoy the full breadth of X-Men Age of Revelation. Let's get right into it with the Last Wolverine. In this issue, we're picking back up with Dr. Heather Hudson, aka Vindicator, who has reached out to the titular Last Wolverine, the artist formerly known as Wendigo, and she wants his help trying to save her husband, Logan, who also the OG, triple OG Wolverine, but is now going by the name the Angel of Death because he works as a slave for the Revelation. And the whole premise here was that Heather needed Leonard's help in order to save her husband. She needs it. Like, he's the one person right now who can probably have the best chance of helping her fix what's gone wrong with Wolverine. And now it comes to light, maybe there is something else that she has in mind. As they go through this title, we kind of see Heather flip-flop from wanting to save Logan to later on talking about killing Logan. Now, the reason why and how she's plotting to do this is that she has the Muramasa blade. This is a sword whose blade can, for all intents and purposes, negate the healing factor that Wolverine has. And not just Wolverine, it actually works on anyone who has a healing factor. We actually saw Wolverine use this blade in the past, and even more recently, use this blade to completely end Sabretooth during the tail end of the Krakoan era and the Sabretooth War. And one thing that is brought up is how Revelation's power works in regards to Wolverine. We have seen in Amazing X-Men, which, for those who are not aware, is effectively the core Age of Revelation book. Even though it's not called Age of Revelation, Amazing X-Men may as well be the main story. Well, we saw in that title when Wolverine was completely and utterly destroyed during the X-Men Age of Revelation Overture one-shot, we saw that Wolverine, he still had parts of him alive, but he was able to regenerate. But because he regenerated, it basically undid what Revelation had done in regards to controlling Logan's mind. And it took not just Revelation using his power willy-nilly, he actually had to use all of his choristers power boosting his abilities to make it possible for him to dominate Logan again. And this is kind of what's brought up by Heather, saying that his healing factor makes it difficult, that Revelation has to constantly keep going back and mind wiping him and dominating him over and over, especially whenever he's, broken down or killed or, regenerated, whatever. It keeps having to be done. So what she seems to be plotting to do, she says she's gonna, quotey fingers, kill her husband, but part of me wonders if that's actually her aim, because once again, this is all stuff that was revealed on the final page, which is like the cliffhanger. And usually in my experience, whatever the cliffhanger is, by the time you get to the next issue, it's usually not exactly what it was left at, in my experience. But that said, yes, using the Muramasa blade would be the most surefire way to undo this, because it would basically make it to where, he would not be able to regen any of that, and Revelation would effectively lose control of Wolverine. I mean, if he kills me, definitely loses control, but if they were able to I don't know, use the blade in such a way where they could stab him with it, but maybe not 100% kill him. No, maybe he can still survive that, but I don't know. I'm a little iffy on the events of what's going on here. Probably the thing that I think people might be slightly more interested in is what's going on with Nightcrawler. We saw in the previous issue that he was just a normal human. You know, he was looking like just a regular person. No blue fur or skin for that matter, no glowing eyes, and also no mutant powers. It was quite terrifying. I'm not gonna lie. I remember looking at him and I kind of had that same reaction I saw a lot of people have, or how people were kind of taking in the idea of how, if you watch the Disney's Beauty and the Beast, how Belle looks at the Beast when she sees him in his normal form, where she kind of looks at him almost like, yeah, you can go back to the monster form. I actually like that better. Like, that's kind of how I felt about Nightcrawler when I saw him as a normal person. But we discovered that the X virus, because of the volatile nature of it, if Kurt were to go back into a zone of America where the X virus is still strong, especially since it's spreading, we learn, I mean, technically we've known this for a while from other titles, but we learn that it is actually spreading faster than people actually realize in this one. Well, as it turns out, he would turn back into a mutant if he came into contact with the X virus again. And it seems like the X virus, while it gave him his powers back, he doesn't seem to be able to not necessarily control them, but he can't seem to weather the effects that teleportation has on his body. It's like he's gone so long, he's gone sedentary with his powers or lack thereof for so long that now having them has put incredible strain on his body. But I also wonder if some of that is the X virus as well, but neither here nor there. The X virus is also having negative effects on Leonard. It's actually causing him to lose some of his control over the Wendigo, basically undoing 10 years worth of storytelling we never actually saw on page. So it's not that big of a loss, but it is still sad nonetheless. So last time around, we gave this book a kind essential rating, and I'm here to say I am going to upgrade this book from kind essential to essential. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because Wolverine has been a pretty major part of some of the other books. He has been a major portion of the Amazing X-Men title. He's even popped up in the Lara Kenny Sabretooth title, to the surprise of no one, I think. And I feel like because he is Revelation's Angel of Death, he is one of the people who is closest to Revelation without really having much to say or do other than just ending lives. Heck, we even saw him in the Sinister's 6 title. And I feel like this is one of those books where we're going to see Wolverine no longer be the Angel of Death by the time this all comes to a head. He will probably be back and working with the rest of the X-Men to fight back against Revelation before it is all said and done. And I feel like that's something that is going to happen in this title and not happen in like any of the other books. I feel like if we see Wolverine get set back to normal, it will be in this book. And if you go back to like, you're reading Amazing X-Men, you're like, man, why is Wolverine here all of a sudden? And he's, acting like nothing ever happened. It's gonna be because you needed to read this book. And while I could still keep it at kind essential, I feel like because of how much Wolverine has been involved, when he gets that get back, I feel like, yeah, you would have had to have read this title to know why. Next up is the Omega Kids #2. This title, we're gonna be following the Omega Kids as Quentin is taking them into the field again and basically running them through not so much an exercise, but an actual mission where they're trying to hunt down a resistance cell. And this resistance cell happens to have a key member who is directly tied to one of the Omega Kids, something that is kind of shocking considering some of the chicanery this particular character has been doing. And it's Bailey's mother. Bailey's mother is amongst the resistance, and she seems just as shocked by it as anybody else. And we also can't negate the fact of what the Omega Kids are. They're all children who have been effectively taken from their parents. So it kind of explains why Bailey acts the way that she does, why she kind of seems to have this negative attitude and kind of is hyper aggro, very Ilyana vibes, if you really want to go there. It kind of explains a little bit of that and maybe why she would have maybe possibly some conflicting opinions about, where she's at now versus where she came from. And she does seem to be like a little bit thrown by it when it's revealed. But the main thing that's happening here is that just like with the previous issue where the Omega Kids, more specifically Bailey, was making him believe that he was having a full-on conversation with his ex-girlfriend Phoebe Cuckoo, well, as it turns out, shenanigans are happening again, only this time, instead of making him see his ex-girlfriend, they're making him see Revelation, making it so that he believes he is reporting to Revelation about the things that they witnessed in their latest assignment. And it kind of makes me wonder something about what's going on with this entire group. The fact that Quentin is having a conversation with Revelation and we're seeing the same glitches that we saw before when he was hanging out with Phoebe Cuckoo, basically insinuating that there was a flaw in the illusion and that none of this is real. It kind of makes me wonder if there's more to the Omega Kids program than what we initially thought. Even Quentin kind of seems to start questioning whether or not there's any validity to what it is that they're doing. How many of these people, these resistance fighters, how many of them could have potentially have been babbled or had loved ones who were babbled or had their kids taken away? He says too many of them. He's kind of pointing out the flaw in the logic of what it is exactly that they're doing. Or if this is actually the case and all these people actually have had loved ones who were babbled, the very same people we saw Quinn and the Omega Kids take down in the previous issue. If that is actually the case, then it would seem as though something is not right with the entire situation. At the end of the day, though, it seems like Quentin Quire has gone soft on these kids. And he, despite his protest and how much he lashes out at them, he really does care about these kids and he wants to protect their best interests. And I could very easily see that by the end of all this, that he ends up taking these kids truly under their wing. And I could see a universe where this guy actually turns on Revelation as a result of what's been going on. But that said, he's actually not talking to Revelation here. I actually wonder if he's ever actually spoken to Revelation in regards to setting up this whole Omega Kids program. I even wonder if maybe this is all the kids doing to some degree or another, or at least one of them. They seem to have the ability to exert great control over Quentin Quire, and he is an Omega level mutant. He's an Omega level telepath. There's really no good reason why these kids who you still have milk on their breath are able to run fades on Quentin Quire's mental resistances. Or maybe he's just so mentally and emotionally down bad that he's just not noticing what's happening. I don't know. I don't really know the full scope here, but I feel like this is one of those stories that could really go either way. And while I was actually kind of romanticizing the idea of doing what I did with the Last Wolverine, upgrading it from kind essential to essential, I'm actually going to keep this book on kind essential because I feel like, well, yes, I think this title is going to have some greater purpose. It does actually kind of tie in and even allude to and help expound upon some instances of the greater Age of Revelation story. I don't feel it does entirely enough to justify bumping it all the way up to essential from kind essential. So we're going to keep it at kind essential and go from there. But yeah, like I said, I do feel like this is one of those titles very similar to Factor X back in the day. It's that book that starts off, you thinking like, is it really gonna be about anything? And then as you keep going, you're like, oh no, this actually is essential reading for this Age of Apocalypse deal. I feel like Omega Kids is gonna wind up being that book. Next up on the list is gonna be Radioactive Spider-Man #2. Look, I am not gonna bullshit y'all. I'm not even gonna spend any time pontificating about what this title is about. This book doesn't have anything to do with the main story of Age of Revelation. I'm not gonna sit here trying to bullshit y'all. I'm not gonna sit here and stand on ceremony with this shit. Is this a fun title? Yes, it's a fun title, but I feel like everything that is happening in it, even though it does deal with X-Virus shenanigans, even though, Spider-Man is kind of tied into some of the, wacky, shenanigans that are, going on here. Yeah, that's all well and good. And the Aunt May of it is pretty interesting, that Aunt May was mutated by the X-Virus. And even kind of the hinting that MJ has gone to glory, that she is no longer Venom, though if she's not Venom, I wonder who the Venom is that's running around in Sinister's 6. We haven't gotten any confirmation there, but they kind of imply in this book that MJ bought the farm. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, at the end of the day, this is really just another Spider-Man book. Like, honestly, I don't even know why we're trying to tie Spider-Man into this. It almost makes no sense. Why this is happening. I was like, look, man, y'all could have just let Spider-Man do his cosmic shenanigans over there somewhere, which is what he is doing. We could have just kept to that. We didn't need to drag Spider-Man into this. Even bringing in Spider-Gwen and Miles Morales, who in this is going by the name Spin. I don't even like that name. They could have kept that name too. While I love Joe Kelly, and I think Joe Kelly's doing some interesting things over on the Amazing Spider-Man side of things, this Radioactive Spider-Man, this ain't it. Even with the heartbreaking stuff that's going on with Aunt May and how she ties into it, none of this actually is going to enhance how you feel about the Age of Revelation overall. So if you came to this title hoping you were going to get more Age of Revelation, you ain't gonna get it here. Next up is going to be X-Men Book of Revelation number 2. This title we're picking back up with Elbecca, who we get to learn a little bit more about in this issue, and her interactions with the Ghost of Philadelphia, Kitty Pryde, who, because of Elbecca's abilities, has been able to help Kitty regain control of her powers. And we get to learn a little bit about why Kitty lost control of her powers. And I think it's something that's pretty, like, once you kind of see it laid out, it's like, oh yeah, this is kind of obvious. We've seen Revelation uses powers to turn people into Bat-Bells, basically robbing them of the ability to understand speech in order to utter speech, to communicate in any way, shape, form, or fashion, basically making them mindless husk of people. We have seen him will people to die. We have quite literally seen him use his powers to completely dominate people and turn them into his mindless assassins. So the idea that he was able to use his power to basically tell Kitty to fade away, to basically make her power turn against her to the point where she could never become completely solid again and not even really be entirely visible either. Yeah, it's not surprising, but it's still pretty messed up. You're like, God damn, dude, Revelation, you are, like, Revelation's tournament banned at this point. Like, you can't use him. You can't use him. But what we also learn about in this is exactly what the circumstances are for Kitty and what it is she's going to attempt to do now that she's got Elbecca on her side. Only not really, because Elbecca is kind of bought in. She's like literally bought in hook, line, and sinker on what Revelation is selling, largely because he has been nice to her. She doesn't really know about a world prior to what happened before, like, all of the Age of Revelation shenanigans, before Cyclops and Cypher threw in their lot together 10 years prior to the date we're looking at today. And she just knows the Revelation has been kind to her, who welcomed her into the ranks, has been kind of like a big brother to her, or a fatherly figure to her now that he has welcomed her into the fold. And all she knows is that he's a benevolent figure. That's all she knows. She doesn't know the evil and sadistic Revelation that everybody else is talking about, that Kitty is talking about. And even more, while Kitty wants Elbecca's help to keep her solid so that she can try and get back at Revelation, Elbecca actually wants Kitty to be the one to help corroborate her story that Fabian Cortez tried to end Elbecca's life. And it kind of goes the way you might think it would, because, as we've seen with not only X-Men Book of Revelation, but we also saw some of this with Amazing X-Men, that one of the choristers, Topaz, was completely and utterly destroyed and taken off the table. So this is how Elbecca wound up becoming the next chorister in line. So we saw all that play out, and we saw how aggro Revelation became because he lost a chorister, because he wants to keep those power boosters around him to elevate his ability so that he is completely and totally absolute in nature. We also saw how far he was willing to go to protect that. And we see it here when he finds out that Fabian Cortez was trying to kill one of his other choristers. Not even so much that it was Elbecca, but that he was trying to undermine his whole operation, and even learning that Fabian was planning to do the same to the other choristers like Chance and Cora of the Burning Heart, basically trying to make it so that Revelation could only rely on him. Revelation hits him back tenfold, effectively forcing him to feel total pain, nothing but pain, until he can get to the bottom of what's going on. And we even find out later that Fabian has been spared of this fate, but now has been forced to be good, has been forced to utterly serve at Revelation's pleasure without question, but now no longer having the ambition and drive he has to rise to the next level, to reach the upper echelons of elitism that he has always, since his debut back in the 90s, has always tried to reach, to try and reach those greatest of heights. He no longer has that. And because he doesn't have that drive, that ambition anymore, that's a whole other level of pain that he wasn't prepared for. And it's absolutely killing him. Now, on the other hand of this, Kitty, because of the fact that she wanted to kill Revelation, Elbecca doesn't want to have anything to do with her, thus leaving her back to being the ghost of Philadelphia, unable to interact with anything or be seen by anything. That's not really what I think is the big deal here in this book. It's that Elbecca is not an innocent player in all this. She didn't just show up out of nowhere. Elbecca is a plant. And not only is she a plant, she was planted by Apocalypse. We saw this before with one of the other Revelation tie-ins, World of Revelation. We saw that Apocalypse, and also by virtue of Amazing X-Men and the X-Men Overture deal, we know Apocalypse isn't happy with what's going on. We know he's not happy with the way events have been playing out. And we know that Bay the Blood Moon was supposedly the person who leaked the location of his choristers and led to one of them getting killed, and that she was going to betray Revelation and go run tell that to Apocalypse. But that actually was not true. It was actually Fabian Cortez who did all that. Fabian Cortez was the one who orchestrated the whole assassination of Topaz at the hands of Glob. So, yeah, that's kind of why Revelation did to Fabian Cortez what he did, because he was like, you basically made me kill my wife, the love of my life, for no reason. So Revelation is sick right now. That said, Elbecca, she is there specifically to bring down Revelation from the inside. Insane. She was a sleeper cell, in the previous issue. The little cute, little whimsical girl that didn't seem like she could harm a fly. Yes, she has been working for Apocalypse, and she wants to see Sabanur back on the throne on Earth. That's what she wants. And effectively, to undo this Age of Revelation and make it a second Age of Apocalypse. As you're probably not going to be surprised, I said this book was essential last time. I'm keeping that same energy. This book is still essential. It's even more essential. I might have to make up a new category. More essential. Yeah, or whatever. I don't know. But no, we're not going to do that. But no, this book, yeah, you have to read this. You have to be reading this, because Elbecca is directly tied to Apocalypse, who is, for all intents and purposes, the opposite number of Revelation in this story. And not to mention the fact that it's directly tied into what's been going on with Revelation, considering we don't get to see a lot of that stuff in some of the other titles, like even in Amazing X-Men, we don't get to see Revelation all the time, and this is his fucking story. So yeah, you kind of have to give this book the essential nod. There's no way to do it without doing. I'm sorry, you just got to. It is what it is. Last, and most certainly not least, is going to be Unbreakable X-Men number 2. When last we left off, we saw that Remy was trying to adjust to a life without Rogue. Rogue has gone to glory. She ain't with us no more. And he's now trying to figure out his shit. And we also know that Lady Henrietta is back, and she has revealed that Shuvarak has gotten out of pocket, and we know that Shuvarak is trying to go after Galactus, trying to get some of that power, but Shuvarak has also been building up ranks and also found a way to get out of the penumbra. So there's all this crazy stuff that's going on, and I'm not going to stand on ceremony with any of this. I'm going to kind of give this the same level of pageantry that I gave to Radioactive Spider-Man. This book is not essential. Like, I'm just going to keep it a buck with you. It's a fun book. It's a great read. I think that it really pays off a lot of the things that were going on in the Uncanny X-Men book that Gale was writing during From the Ashes era, and very likely will kind of get some hints and nods later when we return to Uncanny X-Men after Age of Revelation wraps up. But no, this book is not essential. There's nothing in this title that is kind of paying over to the main core storyline. If you completely skipped Unbreakable X-Men and did not read it throughout the entirety of this X-Men Age of Revelation event, you will not have missed a blessed thing. And that pains me to say that because, like I said, this is a great story. I do think it should be read. That said, I will say I do enjoy some of the character interactions in this. I enjoy seeing Lady Henrietta more. I enjoy seeing the grown-up version of Dome, who was the little St. Junior's girl that was hanging out, at the Haven House with her father, and mother, helping give the Uncanny X-Men a place to stay, all that stuff. Seeing what the Outliers have been up to, like seeing Jitter and Calico reunited, like seeing kind of seeing what they've been doing since being apart from the rest of the group. And getting Death Dream back into the shenanigans, even though we did get to see a piece of him in Amazing X-Men. But yeah, getting to see the Outliers re-up was a pretty cool thing. But at the end of the day, it's not enough. It's not enough to make that essential. Anyway, that is week 7 of the X-Men Age of Revelation tie-ins. I don't know, you guys let me know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree with my assessments of each of these books? And let me know what you think is essential, not essential, or kind of essential, whatever the hell. And let me know what other stuff you're checking out too. Anyway, with that said, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like this, make sure you click that subscribe button and tap that notification bell. That way you don't miss out on anything. Also, make sure you hit that like button as well. Really helps the channel out. Also, if you're watching this on mobile, hit that hype button because it helps boost this video in the algorithm even beyond what the like button can do. So I actually recommend do a little double tap. Hit the like button and hit the hype button. Thank you all for checking this out, and we will see you all next time. Keep it plus ultra in the comments. We out of here. Peace.